Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a tier list. This is going to be day after the release of the Viking invasion patch. That's 3.9, I believe. Um, Let me just check real quick to make sure I have that right. Yes, it's 3.9. So this is coming out right after that. So just keep in mind this this is coming right after a patch, so it might not be applicable to maybe a couple weeks after. Of course, the changes that are made in patches need a little bit of time to set in, but this is kind of from the item changes, from the god changes that I'm seeing, what I'm predicting to happen with this new patch, and also what I've been seeing in the Pro League recently and where I think the meta is going to be going. So before we get into this tier list, I want to talk about where I think the meta is at the moment. So before they made the map changes, which was in the last patch 3.8, before that the meta was very early game focused. This was mainly because of all the XP camps. So the solo lane, of course, had the boar camps. Now they don't, so you can't get as much of an early lead if you're a soul laner. So that takes the early game meta right away from those soul laners. And also the same on the dual lane side of the map. The back harpies are further back, so you're seeing a lot of starts not include that XP camp. Some mages and the dual lane, they're just doing the damage camp, and then the dual lane goes to their XP camp. So you're not getting as much early XP, and also you're not seeing people steal the back camps as often. Again, this is because the back harpies are now so far back, closer to the fountain. It's not really worth it on the dual lane side to go all the way back there to steal those. So they're just less XP early in general. So I think that's why you're seeing the early game meta kind of fall away, and it's more of a late game meta. And I think this is just because the early game is a little bit riskier, so you really need to try to survive the early game in order to make it to the late game. So I think that's a big thing. And then another reason behind this is, so hunters, of course, are, if you haven't realized, they are the biggest part of the meta right now. They are the top role by far. Hunters and generals are just controlling, and the ADC role is doing what it's supposed to. Hunters are now carrying harder than they ever have. This is due to throwing dagger. Throwing dagger is giving those hunters just better early clear, which allows them to get more gold and XP. And not only that, but there's some changes that are happening to late game items that are just boosting those late games for hunters as well. In particular, I'm looking at Wind Demon. This is a crit item that I think is just going to be used a whole lot with hunters like Apollo and Rom on her. Like all these gods who are using throwing dagger are also going to be picking up Wind Demon, so that means that late game they're going to have even better attack speed. Just they're going to be doing so much damage, so you really have to be careful about those. So that hunters alone and those item changes are what is I think changing it to more of a late game meta. And another reason for that is you're seeing people try to pick off those supports early, particularly like the big ones. So like Geb, Sylvanas, Ymir, even like Khepri to an extent. I think that you're going to see those gods get focused early, and if they can't survive that early game without like a gank from the enemy team, they're going to struggle a lot late game. So it's about surviving the early game now, getting to the late game, and then having your hunters carry. That's really where we're at in the meta right now. So I think keep that in mind as we talk about some of these gods. Those early game gods that have kind of broken out, in particular, I'm thinking about Bakasura. This is a god who was considered to be completely broken, and now with the less XP camps, Bakasura isn't getting as much of an early lead as he was, so he's really just okay now. Like he's definitely not harassing the enemy team as much as he was. And so that's kind of the general theme I think that's going on. We're moving from kind of early game to more of a late game meta at the moment. So with that, we'll go into it. I do want to talk about the new Ratatoskr rework. I think it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to play. I haven't played him yet, but he seems pretty overpowered. We'll see how that goes. So I think he's going to be one of the top junglers along with Susano. So I'll definitely be interested to talk about that. And I'm going to do something a little bit different actually with this tier list. Instead of starting with Agni, I'm going to go backwards. So I'm going to start with Zhang Kuei. Just wanted to mix it up a little bit because I always start with Agni and it seems kind of boring. So I might as well start with Z and just kind of go backwards. I might do another tier list where I just mix it up and just pick whoever I want whenever, just pick random gods. But I'll go backwards for this one. So we'll start with Zhang Kuei. Zhang Kuei is pretty good, probably the middle of the road as far as mid laners go. They did just change Golden Stash. It's now a little bit cheaper to buy, so you can buy that as a starting item, if you want, you can rush Warlock Sash, so that's going to help Zhonghui a lot. He loves Warlock Sash, so I think that's a great start for him. Buying Golden Sash, it's going to cost a little bit less. And throughout the tier list, I'm going to reference these patch notes. So we can look at Golden Sash for a second. They reduced, if I can find it, they reduced it by 100 gold, and of course the health also got reduced by 25, and the mana got reduced. So this is going to allow you to buy more potions. If you did want to rush Warlock Sash, you can buy 2 more potions now, so that should be for a better start. So that will help Zhonghui a little bit, but I think he's middle of the road, doing well, but there are just some mages that are better than him. Zeus, I think, is a notch above Zhonghui. At the moment, you're seeing him a lot in the Pro League, and of course, this tier list is going to be focused mainly around Pro League play. Ranked, of course, has some weird things to it. Some gods are a lot more strong in rank compared to pro play, and the reason for that is because pro players, when they see a god who is considered to be overpowered, they figure out ways to counter them. So like Ao Kuang is a great example of that. That's a god that everyone thinks is like crazy overpowered, but the pro players, they know how to counter him. So this is going to lean more towards those pro players. Zeus struggles early game, but if you can survive it and not get ganked and have a jungler who's going to help you out, your late game is going to be amazing. And because this is a late game meta, as I said, as we're moving into that, he's even better now. So he's A+ for me, one of the best mid lanes at the moment. Ymir, I think, is unfortunately on the low end of supports right now. As I said, the big slow supports, they're getting focused a lot right now, and they can't get away. So I think junglers and dual laners, they're realizing that if you can shut those supports down early, then you're going to be set. And I think that's changed from how it used to be, because people would be in the dual lane and they say, oh, there's a huge Ymir, he has a bunch of health, don't even attack him, just focus the ADC. And now they're kind of switching it. They're saying, well, Ymir is not going to get away. He may have a lot of health early, but he's not going to be unstoppable. You want to shut him down before he gets his items online. And because he can't be as tanky as he used to be with the items being a little bit weird in Season 3, he definitely is struggling a bit. And I think him, Sylvanas, Bacchus, to an extent, Geb, they're kind of they're not struggling, but they're finding it harder than it used to be tanky. Xing Chen is okay. They did buff him, but his ultimate is really bad. It's as I said before, it has a huge windup, and so it's really hard to time it and to get more than one person. If you get one person in a Xing Chen ultimate, that's a great ability, because they're probably either they're going to beads out of it, or while it takes you like a minute to charge it up, they're just going to walk out of it. So it has a big charge up. They just changed it, so it has a huge charge up. It also doesn't have that much range. I think if they increase the range of that ability, it might be a little bit better, but it's really small, actually. It's not like a huge AoE at all. So that's a bad ability. Other than that, he's okay. He can be played in support, but I wouldn't play him anywhere else. I wouldn't do him solo lane. Xbalanque is one of the better hunters now. He used to be in B tier before Throwing Dagger. Of course, as I said, hunters are like controlling the meta right now because of Throwing Dagger, because of Wind Demon, because of crit items, and because of other attack speed items. So Xbalanque, his early clear used to be really bad, and because we were in an early game meta, that kind of just pushed him in the B tier, because he's a late game character. But now that he can do Throwing Dagger and have insane early clear, like he has no bad part of the game anymore. Like, he has a good early game now and a really amazing late game. So he's very strong because of that. And people were building him pen a lot, and now people are building a lot more attack speed and crit, because it just makes his late game better. I thought that anyways, but because like crit items get a little bit more expensive, people were buying pen instead. But I really thought like attack speed crit, I always try to do Xbalanque with that. So he's A+. Vulcan, I think he's A. Very strong. He is similar to Zeus in that if you get killed early game, you might struggle, but he has a great late game. So he's still very strong. Of course, Pretty Prime plays him all the time. Vamana, I think, is one of the better soul laners. Not the best soul laner, but one of the best. Great early clear. He can really shut down like hunters and mages, especially if they're like low mobility with his ultimate. So he does a lot of good things well. You're seeing Baskin play Vamana a lot and just like destroying with him. So He's pretty good at the moment. Uller, unfortunately, I think is B plus because he doesn't use throwing dagger. You can use it on him, but he needs so much mana that transcendence just makes more sense. So if you're going to play Uller, just be aware that your early clear is going to suffer a lot, and you have to be really careful. You're probably going to be sitting in your tower for like the first 5 minutes with Uller because your clear just not going to be as good as if you're playing against Apollo. Like you're done. So just be careful with that. He has a good late game, but you have to just really be careful early because of the lack of clear. Tier is also A plus with Vamana. I think a lot of soul laners are kind of in that A plus tier at the moment. Tier has great sustain. His control late game is just amazing. Like his fearless is such a great ability late game, so he can do well in all stages of the game, but isn't the best soul laner, I don't think. But still very strong. Thor is always good. He's actually between A plus and S. I think I'm gonna leave him in A plus. I do think there are better junglers, but he's getting picked a whole lot in the SPL. Has always been up there. Just his early game is stupid, and he also doesn't suffer from needing an early game in order to do well. He's tanky enough that if he falls behind a little bit, he can still do okay. So that's a big difference between him and like Thanatos, who like if he gets killed early, then it's over because he's not tanky enough to survive those gods who have higher levels. And with that, we're getting into Thanatos. So, as I said, he struggles early. Oh, he struggles if he doesn't do well early. He counters a few gods, but he's really like he's not a reliable god. And you're seeing this in all stages of play, like in pro play and ranked casuals. He's just not reliable. Like there, half the time you're going to just get complete. You're going to just feed, and then you're going to lose. So he's not reliable. So I think he's B plus because of that. Sylvanas, unfortunately, is. I mean, he was in B plus for the last tier list I did. I think he's okay. I think he's better than Ymir, to be honest, because his early clear is better. Ymir does have great clear, but Sylvanas' range attack just makes for more reliable clear, and he can just keep clearing with it. It's not like he has to use mana in order to clear. So I think that just makes it stronger. Of course, if you focus him early game as like a jungler, just one early gank on Sylvanas, and he's gonna fall off. So be careful with him, but I think he's still pretty good. Susano, so he is S tier at the moment. His late game is ridiculous. He does so much damage, and he is very mobile, of course. He really does everything. Like people say he doesn't have a great early game, but his early game isn't that bad. And I think you're going to see him and Ratatoska are definitely going to be like the top two junglers, I think, coming up. Maybe the rest of the season. I'm not sure. They will probably nerf him at some point, but I'm not sure what they're going to do. But right now he sits at S. Wukong is A tier. He just can't really. Wukong can't really be aggressive early, at least not compared to like Ravana or Osiris. He kind of has to sit back, clear the wave, because he has a very low health pool. So if you try to be aggressive with him, you're probably gonna die, and feed. So you have to be careful with him. He's not bad, but there are a lot of other soul laners that are just better. Soul, I think, is S tier. She's great because she can open up. She can allow you to do a lot of different things with your composition, and this is a point that I'm stealing from Incon. If you have a magical hunter or a magical ADC, that allows you to do other things. So that means you could do a hunter in the mid lane, a physical god in the mid lane, or you could do, maybe a support like Athena in the soul lane or something like that. Like you can really switch things up if you have a soul ADC. You can put like a physical god somewhere else. You could even do like Guan Yu support. That's a physical god that would be a good support with soul. So it really allows you to mix it up and kind of confuse the team a little bit. So I really like that aspect of her. But of course her clear is great. Not as good as hunters with throwing dagger, but it's still good enough. I think her clear is good enough early that she can still go toe to toe with a hunter with throwing dagger. Sobek is actually I think A plus right now. So he counters healing really well, and his dual lane presence is just super annoying. Like you always, when you're playing against Sobek, you always have to worry about when he's gonna pluck, and you always have to worry about where you're standing. So it's just like one other thing to think about. And if you see like a Sobek and he's like standing right in front of you, you better get out of the way because he's going to pluck you and you're going to die. And especially again, if you're a Sobek and you're playing against the Sylvanas, you're going to destroy. Like Sylvanas, you reduce his healing. If you pluck him, he's not going to run away. He can't run away at all. So he counters Sylvanas pretty hard. He counters Emir as well. And not only that, but he does a lot of damage. So he's definitely a lot better than I think he was before. He's getting played a lot in the Pro League. Scotty, I think, is good. Gets picked off a lot in the Pro League, but still has a lot of damage, can box really, really well. But I think her lack of mobility is a big issue with her. Serket, I think, is A right now. Getting played, a little bit more in the Pro League, but still, like, it just makes more sense to have a jungler who can either be tankier or who just does more early game damage or just has more utility, I think. Serket's kit, of course, is like very bursty, and late game it does a lot of damage with her crit, but there are just other gods that I think just do better than her early. For instance, Naja. Naja is considered a late game god, but I think his early game in comparison to Serket's is just better. So that's something to think about. Scylla. So Scylla is probably the best god in the game right now. Her late game is unbeatable. Obviously, it's always been that way. But because her late game, her early game now, because of Soulstone and Power Pot, it's just as good as any other mage. So that combo together is just crazy, and she's probably the best mid and just wrecks. She just wrecks. So she's S+ for me. Raven, I think, is either A+ or S. Actually, I'm going to put him in A+. I don't think he's quite on S tier. One of the better soul laners for sure, but I don't think he is the best, to be honest with you. And I'll get into who I think is the best, because I do think there is an S tier soul laner out there. Ratatoskr, so of course he got reworked. It's tough for me to put him in a tier. If I were to put him anywhere right now, since the patch just got released, I would actually put him in S. He has crazy amount of CC, a lot of damage. Yeah, he's gonna be very good now. I think they might nerf him, to be honest, because of how much CC he has. I think they were like, oh, we want to take the god who had like no CC, and then just take all the CC in the world and put him on him. And that was an interesting idea, but he is a jungler. He's not really, he's not a support, so I don't know why he has so much CC. That confused me. So I'm actually gonna put him here because it's tough. It's really tough. I would say yes, but it's too early, I think. I don't know why I just picked Agni. We're going backwards. Rom, I think is strong. Not getting played as much. I heard from a couple people recently that Rom is bugged, so a lot of people don't play him because of that in the Pro League. But again, he's the definition of a strong hyper carry. And same with Shivalanke. These two gods are just hyper carries, and they are going to just control the late game so much. And with Throwing Dagger, their early game is also good. So it's kind of like, having your cake and eating it too. It's like, how do we make a hyper carry not suck early? Oh, Throwing Dagger exists, so there you go. That's the answer. So it's a little unfair, but he's definitely one of the better hunters. Raijin, I think, is S tier. I've been putting him in S tier for like the last 3 patches. I still can't get over the fact that they buffed him. Great early clear, great late game, great control, a lot of damage. The list just goes on and on. He's just really, really strong. Ra is bad. There's no reason to ever pick him. He heals, but so what? There are better heals out there. More reliable heals. His ultimate can be missed a lot. His 1 can be missed a lot. His 2 is kind of useless. Just like, don't pick Ra. Poseidon just got buffed. I think he is A. They reduced the amount of title meter that his Whirlpool and his 1 use, I think. Maybe his ultimate, I'm not sure. Let's take a look. There we go. Whirlpool and his 1 now use less of his title meter, and they also cost less mana. Not that much, but still pretty good buff. That is going to make his early clear a little bit even better now. You can use less mana, and is going to be able to get his passive up a little bit more often, so that's good. Um, you might see him a little bit coming up in the Pro League, but I don't expect there to be too much Poseidon. But he's A tier. I think that's a good place to put him. Osiris to me is S. I was saying before that I do think there's some S tier soul laners out there, and I think Osiris is one of them. Great early clear, and doesn't suffer from the board camps as much because his early game is so good. So you're looking at like gods like Amaterasu, Hercules to an extent, some other. I'm trying to think of other soul laners that struggle. But because Osiris has great base damage, good control, good wave clear early, he doesn't need the board camps as much, so that change didn't really affect him, and that automatically to me pushes him up to S tier. Of course, his late game is great too once you get some attack speed on him. His tether is very strong late game, so that's good. I think he's again one of the best soul laners out there. Odin, I think, is good, but just not as good as the other ones. The other soul laners out there. His bird bomb is good early game, but late game, he really doesn't do anything besides use his ultimate. So that's something. And he's, again, early game god, really. And because we're kind of in a late game meta, and he doesn't have the board camps, he struggles a little bit. So I think that moved him down to A tier. Nuwa is okay. No one really plays her like ever. So I think she has a lot of issues with her early clear. Like, her early clear actually isn't that good. She's considered to be a pusher, but she really, like, her early game is not that great. Her late game, of course, is pretty good with her ultimate, but she's pretty easily killed. Can't really defend herself. Can't escape. She has a lot wrong with her. So she's B plus though. She's not like terrible. I think Nox is good, but again, you have to hit her combo. Like, she does more damage now, but still you have to hit it. And even pro players aren't going to hit the Nox combo every time, so I think she's good. Naja, so Naja I think is an S tier jungler. He's getting picked in almost every pro game, either picked or banned. The main reason is so he is again, you're trying to get a combination of a god that's really strong late game, but also can do well early game. That's kind of where we're at. So like with hyper carries like Rom and Chibalanke, they're great late game, but they can also do good early game. Naja is the same. His ring toss, or whatever it's called, does so much damage early. It's a great wave clear. And I think he can just get more XP from it because it hits the entire lane. Whereas if you're playing as Ao Kuang, you're not going to hit the entire lane with your abilities. So that allows him to get more early gold and XP. And the speed buff is also great on him as well. Excuse me. So I think he's just great. And he, not only that, but late game, he is also a great support god because of his ultimate. His ultimate guarantees that the enemy god's going to land in certain spots, so that can set up a Scylla ult or any type of burst ability. You can just set up so many different abilities with that. Same with like Kumba. Kumba is also really strong right now because of that setup. And it's something that's always existed, but people are like really tapping into that setup. The shooting them up in the air, and then when they land, using an ability to finish them off. I think people are really starting to use that combo more. I think that's why Naja has kind of been a little bit more favorable. Nemesis is actually pretty good now. I'd put her in A+. I think she's actually one of the better junglers right now. Same tier as Thor, for sure. Of course, it struggles a little bit early game, but she did have some recent buffs that made her early game a little bit better, and she's a tank killer. So if you're looking to again go after those tanks, play Nemesis for sure. Neith, I think, is unfortunately B plus because she needs Transcendence. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but she's not a Throwing Dagger god, so that puts her out of the meta. Merc, I think, is good. I don't really have too much to say about him, besides the fact that, and I heard Incon say this, that if you are a support and you pick up Hide of the Nemean Lion, you can shut down a Merc because his one ability is considered a basic attack. So Hide of the Nemean Lion is going to proc on that one. So be careful if you're a Merc, if you're playing against a support with a Nemean Lion, don't attack him. That's important. Medusa is pretty good. Not really a Throwing Dagger type god, not really Golden Bow, but that's what most people play with her anyways. But they're just other hunters that are better with throwing dagger than her, but she's still pretty good. Loki's bad. Just don't play him. Kumba is S tier. Probably the best support at the moment. Again, because of that setup. You see, like I said, the Naja knockup, the Kumba knockup. Those two abilities are just setting up so many gods. And people are using that a lot, as I said. So he's also got some of the best CC of any support in the game. A lot of damage, great early clear. He's really, really good. So probably the best support at the moment. No, I take that back. Athena's better. But he's probably second to Athena. Kukulkan is A tier. He's always been kind of B plus for a long time, but again, if you have a Kumba ult or a Naja ult, that's going to set up a Kuku ult pretty well. I think that alone is a good reason to put him in A tier. Capri, I think, is either A plus or S. Again, you can focus Capri early as a jungler and take him out, but he's still got great early clear. His late game's okay. He can't. I mean, he does peel. He does peel well, but he can't be a frontliner. He's not like aggressive, and you kind of want to mix of both. So Kumba is a great mixture. He's aggressive. He can go out there and do damage late game, but he can also peel with his mez and his root, and so he can do both. Capri really only has peel and not really any aggression. So that's one issue with his late game, and you can pick him off too. Kali, I think, is moving down, not getting played as much. Still strong, but her early game really isn't that good. But most people can survive with it. I think in the Pro League, people are figuring out how to take down Kali early. Jingwei. So Jingwei is actually one of the more interesting gods right now. So I had her in C tier. I thought she was garbage. But in the Pro League, she's S tier. Because people know how to use her. They know how to use her little knock-up thing. That's actually a great boxing tool. If someone's like right in your face, you can use that to kind of dance around them. And her late game damage is really insane. The Wind Team and item is great on her. That's helped her out so much because she needs that for the crit. Golden Bow, again, like she already has Golden Bow in her kit, so you put another Golden Bow in that, and her early clear is also is actually pretty good. So she has that mix. She's a hyper carry, but she can also do well early, so she fits in that mold. So she's S tier. I think people are just now figuring out how to use her. Yeah, she doesn't have good abilities, but you don't need that. Rom has like no abilities. His abilities are terrible. You don't really need it. So I think that's why she's moved from C to S. People are like learning how to use her. Janice is pretty good. One of the better mages for sure. I don't really have too much to say about him. People have been playing Janice forever, and he hasn't been buffed or nerfed in like the longest time. So he just kind of sits in A plus, I think. Isis is also A plus. Again, early game isn't as important as it used to be, but it's still good to have an Isis early. Hun Bats, I think, is another one of those junglers who is just doing better. The speed buff is helping junglers in general, and his ultimate just has a lot of control in late game. That ultimate is super important to have, especially if you're attacking Phoenixes. If you want to attack a Phoenix really quickly, because your team's going to have a lot of damage, all you really need is a Hun Bats ult to clear out the Phoenix and then attack it, and it'll take like 2 seconds to destroy the Phoenix. So having that control there is great, and you can just use Hun Bats ult to push all the enemies back behind the Phoenix. It's a really good Phoenix control type of ability. That's really why I think he's S, because of that right there. Hui is probably A plus. Still one of the better hunters, but I think is a notch below Apollo. Just because he isn't as good with crit as some other gods out there. He does have great early clear, and he does use throwing dagger, but I just don't think he's quite on the same tier as Apollo. Herc is A. Don't have too much to say about him, to be honest. Hell is bad. Everyone knows it. Healing just out of the meta. She doesn't really do that much damage. She can't be played mid. She'll get ganked like crazy. Can't be played solo. Just really, you can't do anything with her. Hebo is also bad. Has a good amount of damage, but is another god that just gets picked off so easily. It's like, it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest. Hades, I think, is A. I think Hades could be played more, um, but isn't just because of his lack of range. Like he having a tanky mage is actually super helpful. If you have a tanky soul laner, a tanky support, and a tanky mage, that's just like such any combo. His ultimate combos so well with so many other gods. It combos well with Hunbats. It combos well with Ares. These big AOE's, like they go so together. He has great synergy with those types of gods. So I think he could be used a little bit more. People just undervaluing him a bit. Um, Guan Yu is probably on the same A plus tier as a lot of other soul laners. Probably has the worst early game, but doesn't really matter. It's one of those things, kind of like Wukong, where if you can survive it, you're going to be fine. Just don't be stupid and don't try to be aggressive with him early. Like just play it safe, clear the wave. Um, but his late game is again very strong with Zeal, so he's A plus. Geb, I think, is actually dropped down. Not really played that much. Easy to pick off early. His late game's good, but it's not like amazing. Like I wouldn't say he has the best late game. I think Kumba has a way better late game than Geb, to be honest. Freya, I think, is going to. I think she's gonna come back. I really do. Throwing Dagger is kind of controlling the ADC role, so she's not really gonna be played in that, I think, but I think she could be in the jungle. I think um, if you have like a lot of physical on your team, it might be good to have a Freya jungle. And she did get buffed recently, I think. Yeah, she did. So she's a little bit better. I think she's A tier. She might come back, I think. We'll see. Fenrir is A. Good early game. Can do a lot of damage early game, but his damage does fall off, and he's more of a support god late game, which isn't bad to have. Like I said, Naja kind of fulfills both roles. So he's supporty with his ultimate supporty because it sets up other abilities, but he also does like a crazy amount of damage. So I think Fenrir is good though. Cupid is also A. He does very well with throwing dagger. People have always undervalued Cupid, and now like this is Cupid's time. Throwing dagger's out. He really is a basic attack. I've heard this argument so many times. Like, no, he's an ability hunter. He's not an ability hunter. He has a passive that stacks on basic attacks. Look at Apollo. The main reason people consider Apollo a basic attack hunter is because of his passive, and Cupid is the exact same. You need to have good attack speed in order to build up that passive quicker. He is basic attack focused, so I think that's why throwing dagger is good on him. He's gonna have great clear with it, and they did just buff his ultimate like a little bit. I guess the casting time is like 0 now instead of like, excuse me, like 0.3 seconds. So not that huge, but is a lot better now. And I think people should start playing him in the pro league. Maybe Barracuda will whip him out because I know he used to play Cupid. I've also seen Zatman play Cupid at some time, so maybe later on we'll see. That'd be cool if Cupid comes back. Kronos, I think, has fallen off a bit, but is still A plus. Is definitely not an S tier mage at all. Can carry really hard, but you really have to be good mechanically. So I don't know. He's not like game ending or anything like that. Chiron, I think, is A. More of a transcendency type of hunter, so throwing dagger isn't great on him, but you can do throwing dagger on him for sure. His wave clear is great, but I just don't think he's as good as the other hunters, to be honest. Chunga is one of the more underrated mages out there. You can play her mid. You absolutely can. If you build Soulstone on her and Power Pot, you can absolutely play her mid. Because that's the biggest issue. She doesn't have any early damage. So if you build some more damage on her, her clear actually isn't terrible. And I just love to troll with Chunga. Like you can play against like an Isis who's gonna try to spirit ball you, and you can just use your your 2 to just be CC immune, and you won't get affected by it. That's a very underrated ability. I think it's your 2. It's either 2 or 3. We have the CC immunity, so that's actually very helpful to have. It also, I think, makes you avoid damage too. So she's underrated, I think. Chalk is, I had him in A tier because they buffed him. Still no one plays him. Like he's really not A. I think he's B plus. Still doesn't do enough damage late game. It can't peel. Like he has 0 peel. Absolutely 0. Why would you play a shock when you can play Guan Yu, who's going to peel. Like Tyr can also peel with his fearless. Shock has no real CC. Is kind of useless. So yeah, he's still B plus. They can keep buffing him. It won't really matter. Kabrakan, I think, has moved up to A tier. They did just buff him. He has a little bit more damage on his 2 and his 3, I believe. And now his passive affects him, so he has a little bit more tankiness. I think he can now be played in the support role. Probably not the best support, but is on the same tier, like I said, like Sylvanas. He's pretty much on the same tier as that. And Geb, I think they're all kind of equal now, to be honest. Bologna. So Bologna is up here, S tier. Along those two, I think Bologna and Osiris, best soul laners at the moment. Great early game, great late game. Doesn't really need the XP camps. That's kind of why I'm, again, I said this with Osiris. Those gods like Amaterasu and other ones who like struggle a little bit early game, they needed those XP camps, and Bologna and Osiris, they don't. So they're going to be just fine. They're going to be doing whatever they did, now even better. Excuse me. So she's definitely S tier, one of the best out there, and is going to outclear a lot of gods now. Best set is okay, probably A tier. Don't see her very often. She has a lot of damage, but she's just kind of like she's boring. I don't know. She's just very boring to me. So A tier. Boxer is also A tier. He went from like broken to A tier because he can't harass the jungle as much. I mean, at the same time, speed buff on Bakasura is awesome because he already has the speed with his passive, so having the speed buff as well, he's going to be very quick, but he can't be in the jungle. He really can't. And he can't be in the soul lane either because he doesn't have the board camp, so he just has less camps to steal now, and that just made him not as good. So Bacchus is A, don't have too much to say about him. Awelix is A+. A lot of control, pretty good. Getting played a good amount in the Pro League, so I think A+ is good for her. Athena is up in S+ with Scylla, has been up there for a while, the best support by far. Kumba's a little bit below her, but her taunt is still super annoying. I never get over how annoying it is. Artemis is A. So I hate Artemis. I still don't like her, but she can do okay now. She's getting played in the Pro League and doing pretty well. Her early clear is better with Throwing Dagger. Wind Demon is also great with her. So she's another one. Again, I'm saying this over and over again. These hyper carries who can now survive the early game with Throwing Dagger is huge. It's huge. It's almost breaking the game. So that fact alone, Throwing Dagger alone, and Golden Bow is just boosting her up because of that. So she's not bad now. Ares is A tier. Has a bad clear. You have to hit his chains. He's a little risky, but late game, you can combo his ultimate with whatever. People are, and let's say you have like a Hunbats or like another or Hades, any other god that like waste speeds. If you have a Ares combo with that, like he's amazing. So playing him in the right composition is important, but he's still pretty good. Arachne is okay. Just don't really need to play her. Don't have too much to say about her. Apollo S+. Best hunter, by far. Great early clear. His late game's amazing. He can... So the biggest thing about Apollo that makes him even better, besides the Throwing Dagger and the Golden Bow and all of that, is his ultimate allows him to get more gold. So usually what happens, you're in the dual lane with your support. The support, after maybe like 10, maybe like 7, 8 minutes, they'll rotate over to mid, and then you're kind of left in the dual lane to farm. And that's a crucial time for hunters. When they're like 1v1ing the other hunter, it's crucial for them to get as much farm as they can and to just keep clearing. But Apollo has a bit of an advantage because he has that global ultimate, so he can clear as much as the other hunter is, but they can also just rotate over to mid lane or wherever with his ultimate. So that just allows him, and then once he's over there, he can just keep farming mid lane. So he just has the fact that he has like super mobility, just allows him to get even more farm, and being able to be in team fights when he needs to. So that's just huge. That just makes him even stronger. Excuse me. Aphrodite is terrible. C tier. Just really like if you, so not only is healing not in the meta right now, but Aphrodite can only heal one person at a time. So if let's say you are going to go the healing route for some reason and you want to go for that late game like heal, you might as well pick a Hell instead, or a Chunga for that matter, like an AoE heal which can heal the entire team. But Aphrodite, like, why would you only heal one person? So that just puts her even worse than the other healers. And her early game is awful, like just no damage at all, unless you build like Soulstone on her, but it's a waste. Like, why would you want? You don't need Soulstone on Aphrodite. You want to build like Vampiric Shroud or something else. So yeah, she sucks. Ao Kuang I think is good, but actually not, as I said, not game breaking in the Pro League. People can counter Ao Kuang pretty well. I've heard a couple people say that if you play Arachne against Ao Kuang, the spiders actually follow him while he's teleporting. If you just buy beads and Aegis, that'll help you to cancel his ultimate. Bastet also counters Ao Kuang with their cats. So he can be countered. There are other counters too. I'm not sure what, but you can absolutely counter an Ao Kuang. Anubis is Anubis, whatever. On her, I think is up here in S. Very strong with throwing dagger, has the penetration in his passive. That's really the main reason he's an S, because of the penetration. Just does even more damage than other hunters. Very strong early game, very strong mid game. Falls off a little bit, but if you build Wind Demon on him, like, his late game's still gonna be good. So he's kind of the opposite of Xbalanque and Rom. He's the opposite of a hyper carry who can survive early game. He is a super early game who can now, with Wind Demon, survive a little bit better late game. So that's kind of why he's in that S tier. He has a little bit of everything. Amaterasu is pretty good. Great ultimate, good control, but her early game's bad. And I said before in Soul Lane, her not having the XP camps makes her early game just even worse. So she's just going to struggle a little bit more, but not too bad. She's still A+. Opwash, you could argue he's an A, but I think he's B+ still. He's not very good. Amuzin Cab is B. Really bad. Just he's the B. Whatever. Don't play him. And finally, Agni. Agni is actually not good right now. He's B+. The main reason is his damage is very, very low. Compared to other mages, he is probably one of the lowest early game damage. I'm not sure. I have to check. But he really does not do much damage throughout the game. Like, he never carries. He's not a carry. He's more of like an objective stealing, kind of like a support mage almost. He's weird. He doesn't really do anything. So, very underwhelming god. Why would you pick him when you can just pick Zeus and just destroy late game? Agni doesn't really destroy anywhere, so he's in a weird spot. So that is the tier list. That is, I think you can see a lot of A+, A tier. That kind of is where we're at right now in the moment. Let me know what you think about this. If you have any other opinions about where God should be, I definitely would like to hear about it. But I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.